So I've the same way I adjusted that other video, I'm going to talk through the script that I wrote and the reasons why I wrote that script and how I wrote it to be reminiscent of Greg and Laura Lomas's writing style. So the first thing I did was obviously, look at the scripts that Greg says in the original text, and obviously I've broken that down a lot through punctuation and just the general tone and everything over the course of the project. So it wasn't too hard to replicate it. So I replicated the text, lots of commas, lots of ellipses, lots of use of the words such as like and cause. It's all one train of thought, one continuous thing. I did choose to put some punctuations in just to really, punctuate key points. I also used a lot more question marks than Greg does, but oh well, can't be perfect. Lots of changing lines for key moments to make things shorter, to make things seem like they're being spoken quicker. I used a lot of that. Obviously, I started it with "so," because that's almost Lomas's trademark writing style, really. And then similarly, I ended with it just. I then added a tiny bit on the end there, just to bring it more concluded, but we'll get to that bit. I think that's sort of the gist of how I wrote it. Now let's look at why I wrote things. So, it's Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't tell anymore. Now that is, obviously, Greg starts all of his conversations with, so it's Saturday. I didn't want to set it on a Saturday. I wanted to change it up. I set it on a Tuesday. But then I also say or Wednesday. And this is bringing in some of that confusion that Greg feels with it. Because none of this is supposed to, and almost the entirety of mine and Amelie's shared scene of Platform 2 of blue, yellow, left, right, kicking, bouncing, all of that, the confusion of it, where the memories are not quite right, things don't quite make sense in this post-traumatic world. So that's what I've sort of tried to put in there. Then I've gone, and I'm in the bathroom at school, not like crying or anything, just sitting on the closest of the toilet, door locked, listening to the buzz and the lights of the sound of the people were just going on like normal. I butchered that, terribly sorry, but the idea is that's meant to be very reminiscent of. So, it's Saturday, and I'm in the car with my mum. We're driving. She's giving me a lift to work. Or I'm standing on the platform. Yeah, feels still, almost wet. That's sort of the traditional Greg sets a scene opening line or two. And then what I also wanted to do, I should have said at the start, is Greg, the way Lomas wrote it is very interesting because it's very clearly in past tense. The majority of it's in past tense. So I was standing there on that platform and I could feel all these bodies, except he's also reliving it in the moment. There's a very thin blur between the past tense and the present tense. So I did try to incorporate that into a lot, just the use of would, could, was versus am and are, if that makes sense. And I'm looking at my shoes, trying to think of a way to walk back into class like I haven't just disappeared for 12 minutes, like I'm not avoiding anything, like I don't feel too much and also not enough at the exact same time. Again, I'm just writing this to really feel like it could be Greg's classic storytelling in this monologue, in this new line, one thought kind of way, with all the ellipses and the commas, like I said. Right, now we start getting into what I'm writing about Greg. Greg's whole characterization, again, I don't want to go into this too much, because obviously the entire website, you just need to go and read the website, and that's sort of all I've written about. But Greg's whole point is he is the outsider. He is new to this school. He is watching all of these other people's stories unfold. He's in all of them, but just as a watcher, because he's not involved. He's just sort of there. At one point in the website, I described it as most people probably wouldn't even be able to tell you that his name is Greg in the school. Something which I've had to say a few times, as I think about 4 people have asked me about using Greg in their film. Not to have me film, but just sort of as a presence in their film that they could say that they were thinking about. And I've explained to them how my character role, and they've decided not to use me. Most people don't want to use the character of Greg just because they don't want to reach out to me. But that is okay. That's fine. It fits the character anyway. Side tangent anyway. Side tangent over. Sorry, it is very late at night. So this is what he's mean. His secret is he still does care about what people think, even though because he's had a rough couple of years at the old school. Now he's moved to this new school where he doesn't know anyone and he's not quite fitting in. So he's really trying to be concerned. He's really concerned. He's really trying to be normal, to fit in. He's really concerned about what people think. So we've got the line that I wrote, like to other people, like when I walk into a room, what happens to their faces? Do they look or look away? And what do they see? Because it never feels like they see me, because it's like there's this version of me that I'm constantly performing for people who might not even care. But what if they do? Because Greg is, again, he's that outsider. He has no idea what people think of him because he just doesn't really talk to anyone. And then then you go online, and I scroll and I see this post about war. So here I start talking about the film that I've just made. That is what I discussed this in the last video, I believe, very briefly. That this line makes the whole of the film seem like it's something he's scrolling on. Not only is it representing his inside thoughts, it could be physically the videos and the clips he's seeing scrolling through his phone. Because I talk about how he's scrolling through and you see this post about a war that he doesn't even know is happening. And then I say, and there's this kid that looks my age maybe, or maybe younger, which is a direct callback to the scene Train, and Laura Lomas is writing in that, covered in dust and blood, just staring, and I feel like I can't breathe. Again, direct reference to how I portrayed the panic attack and the anxiety attacks in Platform, and that's something I really wanted to push through in this again. Because he doesn't get to worry about whether his voice is too high or his laugh is too weird or he's being left out of a group chat again. He's just trying to stay alive. It's just something that I feel like Laura Lomas wanted to encapsulate, this idea that everyone has their problems, no matter how small they are. Greg's problems seem small compared to someone like Jane in the play. But I think Laura Lomas wanted that. She wanted to show that even though everyone has these different problems, everyone does have problems, and they all link. And I just further that by moving on from the war side of the world to the environment and the nature side of the film I just made, where I talk about and another about the dead fish, dead polar bears, the dead rhinos, because that's all there is in this world. No hope. Again, just really trying to establish that this is as similar to Laura Lomas's writing style as I can. I talk about how nothing really matters, which is, again, I feel something that really fits the character of Greg. This is just something that Greg feels, because at the end of the day, he's pushed, and it doesn't, no matter what he does, it doesn't work. It's never good enough. He messed up in the dance scene, in the first dance, he messed up, and everyone laughed at him. Then 30 seconds later, the popular kid messes up, and it's all okay, it's all fun and games. I just feel like he's always trying to express himself. That's sort of what the dance is all about. His dance is, I explored that with the movement, his action, that it represents his unpredictability, his chaos, represents him just trying to reach out, trying to be part of something that he can't be, which is, again, and the reaching out of the dance is certainly what I use in the scene Structures, which happens right before the dance, right before Chaos, which is what I've then recreated here. So it all sort of links into one. It all connects. Everything I do, I just watch, because maybe it's me. On the inside, I'm the problem. That, again, is a direct to the line, because maybe it's me. On the inside, it's not a direct reference, but it's very clearly a reference to part 3, where he says, maybe it's us, like, on the inside. Except this time it's much more pessimistic, because it's about himself. Everything I do, I just watch. Needless to say again, really. Because maybe it's me on the inside, I'm the problem, but I watch everyone from afar, laughing, having fun, playing, crying, hurting. Something I wanted to put into this monologue, because I think that's something Lomas wanted to get forward, is that, well, I suppose Lomas wrote it into the script, and then our director pushed us to push my character to be in these scenes, to see it, because he watches people laughing and having fun and playing, but also crying and hurting. Yes, there's joy, yes, there's misery, it all goes together in the world, and Greg is just on the outside, watching this all, desperately trying to be part of it, but not ever quite working it. And then I put my references to the other characters, and I hear these rumours that so-and-so has an abusive dad, referring to Jane, and so-and-so got rejected by his crush, referring to Will, and so-and-so's dad's in hospital, referring to Dan, and so-and-so is oh so politically good now, referring to Chiara. All of these characters that he's witnessed, that he can see having their lives playing out in front of him, doesn't get to talk to. Doesn't know their names. They don't know his. It's one of them. Yeah. And suddenly I feel like I should be ashamed for feeling sad, for feeling lonely, for feeling anything that isn't huge. I think that's really important to the character of Greg, to all of the characters in the production, to just the teenage mind that Lomas wanted to create, to represent. The whole chaos scene represents the teenage mind. I think that's something really important, that is that you feel bad for feeling bad, if that makes sense. But also, how am I supposed to carry all of that? How can I make myself feel smaller and still take up enough space to be real? All of that is just Greg, in a nutshell. I think you just need to read the website and it comes across, obviously. And I know this sounds stupid, but that's direct reference to the script in part 3. I know this sounds stupid, but it's very similar at the very least. In this moment, sitting there in this gross bathroom with this flickering light and this ache in my chest that I can't quite name, a reference to, and the feeling in my legs is now in my stomach from part 1, from the train. And I feel like this whole world is made of tiny moments, tiny, quiet fears held by people who didn't know how to say them aloud. 2 things about this. First one is that is written exactly the same as this tiny, fragile butterfly from the train monologue. And then also fears held by people who don't know how to say them aloud, because it all feels so small, but it isn't, not really. I think that's what Laura Lomas was trying to push. Doesn't matter how small your problems are, they're still a problem that you feel, that everyone feels. Everyone has their own tiny problems, but it's a problem to you, so it is important. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. And then we go into the classic. It's just a direct reference to my scene and also Chiara's scene, but I've spoken before about how Chiara and Greg are originally designed to be the same person, I believe. But I've put in, it's just us. It's just trying to be seen, trying to be good. It's just trying to be okay, because I wanted to get that fault out. Greg doesn't get to have his fault put out. Greg doesn't get to be with people. He doesn't get to fix his problems. So I wanted to have his speech finally come out, just to add to the character, really, just to give him that moment to finally write that, what comes after. And I think the fact that he almost ends it positively. The monologue is kind of negative, you know, animals dying, wars breaking out, abusive dad rejected by your crush. But I think it ends on this slightly pessimistic but hopeful outlook. So it almost acts as the bridge between the pessimistic train, the scared, anxious train, and the hopeful look to the future part 3, because he's saying, yeah, everyone does feel these problems, but that's okay, because at the end of the day, even though we all fight, we're all different, we're just all trying to be okay, is what I chose to end that. Now I'm going to talk about how I put that into the film. So the original piece, I had a bus. I went and filmed a bus journey, and I was going to put it over the top, but the footage I had was not long enough for this monologue. Similarly, the music I had chosen was not long enough. However, I made the decision to not shrink down the monologue because, honestly, I couldn't find a bit of the monologue that I didn't think was important. I feel like it all adds together to create this one image, this one storytelling monologue. So I looped and extended the music track. That was, fairly easy to do. It's not all that. It's just, I just went and found small sections to loop and extend. And then I went and shot new footage of the train, and I chose to do the train because that's where it all began for Greg. For us as a company, that's where it all began. That was the first thing we choreographed. It brings it full circle. But for Greg, it brings it full circle because the first time we see Greg in this post-traumatic text is him on the platform going, it's all too much, I can't do it. But we know that he gets that train often. We look at the given circumstance of that scene. We know he gets that train often, so it makes sense that he's on this train. And I understand that at the start it says, I'm in the bathroom at school, because I wanted to connect it to the school, that most of the play we created is set in a school, so I wanted to set it in a school too. However, he's talking about when he was. It's in the past tense, like the monologue. He wasn't actually on the train platform. He wasn't actually in the car with his mum. He was talking about a memory when he was. So perhaps he's on the train, on this train he gets so often, on this busy train that he gets so often. He's talking about a time where he was at school. It just all brings it into one big collection. And then how I wrote it, what am I trying to say? How I wrote some of the lines being long and some of them being short is I really looked at the circles of attention and the music. When the music gets bigger and louder, I have much wider circle of attention. He's talking about the world and the people and the dead fish and the dead polar bears, and the music at this point is getting louder and louder and building and building and building. Then the music starts to fade and it becomes much more small. It almost lulls slightly. And that's when I bring my circles of attention back into just himself. Just Greg. I know it sounds stupid, but in that moment, I feel like tiny moments. It brings it all the way down, and I believe the music fades out just slightly before the end, where he actually calms himself down, which is something different, because that was what I was trying to say earlier. He manages to get out his sentence. It's just us. It's just trying to be okay. He gets it out because he's finally calmed himself, which is why the music closes. So yeah, I think that's more or less everything.